All right, court has returned from the lunch break, and we are taking a live look at that Oakland County courtroom right now, where the day 4 of the trial of James Crumbley is resuming.
All rise for the jury.
You may be seated. Who's next with us?
William Creer.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give you the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, please be seated, and then would you state your name for the record and spell your first and last name?
Record, my name is William Creer. First name's common spelling. Last name spelled C-R-E-E-R.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Creer, I just want to acknowledge that you just came from a very long shift, so you're a little tired. So we're not going to keep you on the stand very long. Can you tell the jury what your job is?
No problem. I'm a forensic technician for the Detroit Police Department. You can commonly call it a crime scene investigator. My job is to go to the crime scenes, take pictures, collect evidence, and generate a report and testify in court like I'm testifying now.
Okay. So as your job as a crime scene, would you say investigator?
That's fine.
Okay. It's important to distinguish, are you a member actually of law enforcement?
I work for law enforcement, yes.
All right. Are you considered a police officer?
No, I'm not.
All right. Is that then, would you consider yourself a civilian?
Yes.
All right. How long have you worked as a crime scene investigator?
20 years.
And all of those years have you worked for the Detroit Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to draw your attention to December 4th of 2021. Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
And are you on shifts or are you on call? How does that work?
We're on shifts. My shift I currently work on is from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And are you at home during this time or call when necessary, or are you actually in an office?
I'm in the office.
Okay. On December 4th, were you dispatched that day, if you know, to an address of 1111 Bellevue in Detroit?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Do you know about what time you received that dispatch?
I believe around 2 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware if there was a search warrant that was being executed?
The request we got over radio was there was a search warrant executed at that location.
All right. And what were your initial thoughts when you were dispatched to the location about what your purpose there was?
All we knew at the time was a search warrant at the location. We really didn't know anything else about it previously until we pulled up.
All right. And when you pulled up, what was your observation?
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
When we pulled up to the scene, overall,
Thank you.
A lot of news cameras around, so we were like, okay, this is interesting.
In addition to the news cameras, though, what was the scene like in terms of, was law enforcement already on scene? Did you know what had happened in that scene?
At that time, we didn't still exactly have any of the real details. All we knew at the time was it was a search warrant. We were there to collect evidence regarding the search warrant. When we pulled up, there was, of course, like I mentioned before, news cameras all around and heavy police presence.
All right, and then what happened?
Then when we reached the scene, we talked to the officer in charge, and then that's when we were were notified what this case was actually involved with.
And what were you told?
That the case was involving the
Can
Crumbley.
you just raise your voice just a little bit, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was trying to.
I knew you could speak louder.
No problem. Case was involving the shooting incident, and this was the location that search warrant was being authorized, and 2 people were arrested.
Is that all you were told?
Yes.
Okay. And were you directed to a certain part of the building?
Suite 130 of the location you mentioned.
Were you by yourself or with someone else?
I had a partner.
And who's that?
My partner is Stephanie Sparks.
Do you normally process the scene by yourself or with another partner?
Midnight, you process scenes with partners.
Okay. And once you arrived at the suite, were you and your partner the only one there? Were you the only ones there, or who else was there?
The scene was secured by the police, by the church police.
What does that mean, secured?
Means that it's secured so that way there's no outside interference coming inside the building, no one tampering with evidence, and everything is there as it was when the search warrant was executed.
And is that a typical thing and that you encounter in your job? That do you arrive to scenes once it's cleared and secured, or are you sometimes there at the same time? A lot's going on.
Oh no, we're there after the scene is secured.
Okay. So what is your job when you arrive on the scene that day?
When I arrive at the scene, we talk to the officer in charge of the scene. We then walk through the scene. He points out items of interest.
Remember, keep your voice up.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He points out items of interest that he might want collected. My partner and I would then walk through the scene. We'll also pay attention to see what's around. We then would suggest additional items if we need to collect, and allow us to look around a little bit more. And then after that, we take pictures, collect evidence, and package the evidence, turn it in.
All right, Mr. Kerr, is there a difference between collecting evidence and searching?
Yes.
And are you assigned to do both?
It depends on the situation. Yeah, in this situation, we collected the evidence. The search warrant was already executed, and we looked around additionally.
All right, and what makes you start searching other places?
The fact that we looked around and said, yeah, the OIC, I can't remember the name at the time, gave us permission to look around a little bit more.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 306, 307, 309 through 320, 322 to 358. I believe these have all been admitted. Mr. Pierre, what is that?
That's the scene location.
All right. And
Again, it's the north side of the scene location.
okay.
Again, we're at the north side of the scene location.
All right. Can you see the windows on the suite that you searched?
I believe the windows on the scene that we searched, because the actual suite 130 is located on the northeast side of the building. So I would say the 2 windows closest to the left side of the screen.
Okay. And then, do you know what this is?
Yes, that was the vehicle we were directed to at the crime scene.
Oh,
Yes,
you also searched the vehicle?
No, we didn't search the vehicle.
Okay.
We took pictures of the vehicle.
Okay, got it. What did you learn about the car? Anything? Did you take pictures of anything around the car, in the car?
We took pictures around the car, and then also around the car there were cigarette butts we collected.
You collected the cigarette butts?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is this a picture of?
Those are pictures of the cigarette butts.
All right, do you remember how many were there?
Not off the top of my head. No.
Okay. Did you bring a report with you today?
I did bring a report.
Would that refresh your recollection?
It would.
All right, could you have a look at it and just let me know when you are ready to answer that question?
Collected a total of 14 cigarette butts.
Okay. Anything else around the car? Is that a picture? What are we looking at?
The picture that's behind the vehicle and more cigarette butts.
And you collected those?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and 312 and then 313. What is that?
That's suite 130.
Okay. Is that where you searched?
Yes.
All right. And is that typical? You just take pictures of What do you take pictures of as a matter of protocol?
No problem. We take pictures of the area. In this particular situation, that's the actual room number. So of course we took pictures of the front door and room number. As we enter through, we'll take pictures of there to see if there's any damage to the door, if any, if the door was breached, if it wasn't breached, if there was any damage at all.
Was there any damage to this door?
None observed.
Okay, and the next slide is 314. Do you recognize that?
Yes, that's the actual scene inside of the same location, 130.
Okay. And then 315. Is that also from a different angle?
Yes, as we enter the room, that would be to the north.
And those windows that we see, do you know where they faced?
They are also facing north.
Would those be the windows you just pointed out in the previous slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is another angle?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what is this?
This is directly in front of the door, so that would be to the east side of the building.
Did you observe a mattress in this building, in this room?
There was a mattress in the room.
Do you see it in this picture?
You kind of see it towards the bottom of the screen. Yeah, right there.
Okay. And the next slide?
To the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you see the mattress with the drawers on top of it.
Oh, that's the mattress?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And then I'm just going to show you some slides, pictures of the scene, and you can just describe what angle it is and what you, if you see anything of significance to point out to the jury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, you see the mattress. You see the drawers. You also see going just to the right of the mattress.
Remember to keep your
of the
voice
screen.
up a little bit.
Sorry. To the right of the mattress towards the edge of the screen, you see a table with 2 solo cups.
Right there?
Yes.
Okay. What is this?
Again, we're right at the mattress. At the, I guess that would be the left side of the mattress, you have some clothes and a baseball cap.
Okay. And the next slide. What's significant about this, if anything?
You got the mattress in the bottom right hand of the picture. Towards the left hand of the picture, right in front of the little shelving units on the floor, you have a Snipes clothing bag.
All right. And at some point, did you remove the items in the bag?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the picture of those items?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell the jury what you found?
If you see in the picture, a few pairs of socks, receipt, sweatshirt.
And are the socks, do they appear to be worn or new?
Those are brand new.
All right. Do I see a receipt in that picture?
Yes, you do.
Okay. We're going to get to that in just a second. The next slide. What are we looking at?
You're looking just, that's the mattress to our right, and to the left there's some shelving units, but right in the middle there's a sweater.
Okay. Just for context, when you say right or left, when you're looking at this picture, where is the door?
Got you. The door would be to the west of the mattress.
So to the top right of the...
It'll be just to the, on the right side of the screen, towards the right border of the screen.
Okay. And is that the article of clothing we just saw in the previous
Yes, ma'am.
slide? Okay, what is it?
It's a sweater, as I mentioned before.
All right, do you know if it's male or female?
Looks like a female sweater.
Okay, and the next slide. Where did this come from?
Right now, if I remember correctly, this is going to be towards the east side of the room, and that's just a regular shirt, and you see further on a few pairs of other articles of clothing.
Okay. The next slide is, where is this in relation to the room?
In relation to the room, as you see through the previous slides, there was a table. The table would be along the south
Is the
side.
table right next to the mattress with the solo cups?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This area is behind the table, and that's a pink book bag. This was in a plastic tote container.
Was the tote, did it have a lid on it, or was it without a lid?
It was without a lid when we arrived.
With or without?
Without.
Okay. Do you know, did anybody take the lid off, or was it found like that when the individuals were arrested?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation. I don't know how he would know that.
I started out with, do you know?
No, I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. And was there anything else in this container other than the backpack?
I'd have to go further through the pictures.
Okay. What is this?
That's the table that is right in front of the tote with the book bag.
Okay, and can you tell the jury what was on this table?
You have foodstuffs like bananas, orange juice, and fertilizer bottle, a Coca-Cola bottle, and Solo cups.
All right. And the next slide?
Next side, we're right back at the tote with the book bag.
All right. And what's this?
This is the part where we're getting ready to go through the tote, through the book bag that we just pulled out of the tote.
And what do you see?
I'm
sorry. What did you find in the backpack?
Okay, to the left of the book bag, towards the top of the screen, you have a smaller little bag, and you also, as we're going to go progress through the pictures, you're going to see various articles of clothing.
Okay. Next slide.
Again, we're going through, progressing through the pictures. You have various articles of clothing, and we still have that little smaller bag right there on top of the book bag.
Was there anything in that bag?
I have to look at my report to refresh my memory.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't believe that's the great purse. Could we progress through the pictures?
Sure, sure. What's to the left on there?
To the left, you have a pair of black jeans.
Do you know if they're male or female?
I believe they're female.
All right. And the next slide is 332. What is that a picture of?
Another picture. It's another picture of the black jeans.
Okay. And the slide after that?
You see the brand of the jeans. You see their high-rise skinny stretch jeans, and you can see the size on the tag if you zoom in.
All right.
That's size 12.
Okay. And the next slide? Where were these articles found?
Those articles were inside the pink book bag.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what is in that picture?
And inside the picture, you have you see a syringe. I'd have to go through my notes to recall what was actually inside the syringe. You also have some pills just at the bottom of the screen, and then on the inside the bag, you also see a bank envelope.
A what?
A bank envelope.
A bank envelope. Okay. Do you know what the pills were for, or what they were?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Is it in your report?
Let me look at my report.
Okay. Yes. And while you're doing that, would it refresh your recollection about the syringe?
Yes, because
Okay.
I recall that it's definitely a bank envelope.
Okay.
Okay, the syringe was the Exceed. It's the prescription for medication for a horse.
Okay.
That's the syringe that you see in the picture inside the bag. And I don't have a description of the pills.
Okay. In the next slide, do you see a better description of the back of the pills there?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, I believe they're like caffeine pills or something like that.
Vivarin?
Yes.
All right. In the next slide, that's what you just talked about.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And what is this?
Those are articles of clothing that I described earlier.
And can you list those?
They are female intimate garments, underwear and bras.
And do you know how many pair of underwear?
Now, top of my head.
Okay. In the next slide, what is that?
That is the hotel room key. It was inside a black jacket, and that was along the northeast corner of the room.
Okay. And the next slide is 339. What is this?
It's a picture of a whiskey container. It's in a garbage can.
All right. And the next slide is a receipt. What is this receipt for?
It's from the Rivertown Mart. We found the receipt on the table. As you see on the, as we go through the pictures, you have the various items that are on the receipt. I believe the next picture also has the date on the receipt as well.
What is this?
That is going to be a plastic tote with an avocado inside the tote.
Okay. And I remember the last time you testified, you weren't sure what that was.
Exactly.
You've since learned it was an avocado.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What else is in that picture with the avocado?
It's a aluminum container, similar to what you would use for like baking. Lasagna.
Okay. And what's inside of it?
Melting ice in an ice bag.
So was it completely melted or was it still cold?
At the time, it was completely melted. Yeah, at the time, it was completely melted.
Was it still cold?
No.
Okay. The next slide. What is this?
It's a receipt.
Is it the receipt that we just talked about at Rivertown?
I would have to look at the picture before because you see at the top of the receipt it has 14, and on a previous picture. Yes, that's the bottom of the receipt.
Okay. And what's the date on that?
The date on the receipt is 12/3/2021.
And at the time you are searching this, is it December 3rd or December 4th?
It will be December 4th.
Okay. And the actual time of the purchase?
4:09 p.m.
Okay. The next slide is, what is it?
Yeah, this picture of the mattress we talked about earlier.
Okay. The next slide is 344. Tell the jury what this is and why you took a picture of it.
This is a picture of the totes that will be around the east side of the room. The reason why we took pictures of the totes is because we saw the one tote that was already open before. These totes look kind of funny or kind of just look like they kind of was messed with or jostled with at the time. So we decided to take pictures of the open one.
Okay, and just so that the jury understands, I want to go back to slide 14. Do you have that number? It's to show the bear. Maybe this one. Starting. Okay, so do I have this right? There were 2 separate plastic totes that you discovered items in?
Yes.
Okay, and were they found in the same place?
No.
All right, you testified earlier that the tote with the pink backpack, where did you find that?
The tote with the pink backpack, if you go through the picture, you see the table just to the left side of the screen in that corner. That's where the one tote with pink book bag is located.
So how far away from the mattress?
It's the mattress, table, and the tote.
Okay, so a foot, 2 feet?
About a foot, yeah.
Okay.
About a foot, yes.
Okay, and then you said you searched and discovered more items in a different tote.
Yes.
And where was that?
Towards the top of the screen, you have the yellow scaffolding, whatever, holding the totes. Then behind that area, behind the table right there would be the next area of totes.
Okay, so is it on that scaffolding you found it?
Right behind it.
Right
Right behind the table.
Right behind there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So was that visible when you walked into the room?
No, as you walk into the room, you look around, you know, during the search of the area.
Okay. So that tote that was found on the other side of the room, what was discovered, if anything, in that tote?
In that tote, that's where we found the purse with the money as we go through.
Okay. One moment. Okay. Was the tote found in that condition? And I guess what I'm asking is, was there a lid on it?
You see the lid on it. As we take pictures, you see it as we progress.
Okay. Next slide. What is that?
Again, you see the tote being moved over a little bit. You see the purse.
Okay. What is this?
Yes. Now we're looking inside the purse.
All right. And then the pictures, is this how you do it? You take a picture of the first item and then all of the things that you take out of it?
Yes, ma'am. We take a progression.
Okay. Sorry, you told me that. All right. Next slide. What is this?
You see the bank envelopes. You see a search warrant under the bank envelopes, and you see the 2 bank envelopes as well, top of it.
A search warrant, what is that?
As you see at the top of the screen is the warrant tabulation return.
Okay. And that was found in the bag or in the tote?
The bank envelopes were found in the purse. The search warrants were just on the table.
Okay. And then the next slide, what is that?
You're again looking inside the purse and you see cash right in a smaller pocket of the purse.
Was there anything in the bank envelopes?
Yes, there's money in the bank envelopes as well.
All right. And you see cash in this picture. Is this separate in addition to what you found in the bank envelopes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you remember, and if not, you can look at your notes. How much total? What was the total amount of cash found in that handbag?
I'd have to look at the notes. I know it was around $6,000.
Do you want to just correct?
Yes,
Make sure you're
please.
correct.
$6,617.
Okay. And those are. We'll get to it. I'm not going to do that again. Okay. Next slide. That's just a close up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. The slide after this. This is exhibit 350, and there's kind of a lot going on in this picture. Can you explain to the jury what you see?
No problem. In the picture, you see 4 cell phones. One of the cell phones appears to be busted and broken. Those are the condition of the cell phones. Those are the condition we collected the cell phones. You also see the keys just to the left of the cell phones. They were collected. They were turned over to the unit at the scene so that it can collect and move the card. You also see a bank card and some prescription medication just to the top of the bank, just to the top and left of the bank card.
Okay. The next slide.
That's a closer picture of the keys.
And the bank card. Was that a traditional bank card? If you know.
No, I don't know.
Okay. The next slide.
You have a closer picture of the medication I mentioned before.
And do you know what these medications were?
No. I see Adderall and 2 other containers.
Okay. Do you know who they're prescribed to?
You see Jennifer Crumbley on all 3. Well, you can see it better on the bottle to the right. In the other 2 bottles, you can kind of see Jennifer and then Crumbley.
All right. And the next picture.
Again, it's a picture of the 4 cell phones.
Were any of these cell phones powered on?
No,
How do you know that?
because if they were probably, we take pictures of the items in the condition that we collected.
They were all off.
Exactly.
And then the next picture? What is this?
It's pictures of the money we collected from the purse.
So you actually lay out each bill?
Yes.
Okay. And the next photo?
More pictures of the money.
And the 2 after that?
Yep.
All right. And then the last photo here is a receipt. Can you tell the jury what the time and date is on this receipt?
12/3/2021.
And what are the items listed?
Giant lasagna pan, Werner's 2-liter bottle, paper towel, Kleenex.
Okay. Thank you. At what time do you estimate that the search was completed?
I have to look at my notes, definitely get that time.
Okay. For the sake of time, does it around 5 a.m. sound
Yeah,
right
around
to you?
5 a.m.
Okay. And then when you were done, what did you do?
We were directed to take pictures of the prisoners.
And is that a normal thing in your job?
If we were directed to, yes.
Okay, so where were these individuals located?
Oakland County Jail.
So did you drive straight to the jail?
When we were directed to, yes.
Okay. As soon as you finished the search?
Yes.
And the compilation? Okay. And when you arrived at the Oakland County Jail, what did you do?
We took pictures of both the Crumbleys individually. First, we took pictures of Miss Crumbley first, and then Mr. Crumbley.
Okay. And what's the purpose of that?
The purpose of it was the fact that show any injuries if there are any, and the condition when they were arrested.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nothing further.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of your response.
If there are any injuries or their condition when they were arrested.
Thank you.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. Briefly. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As a forensic technician, your role is to document what you see at a scene, correct?
Yes, ma'am?
Your role is not to investigate what may have occurred prior to your arrival.
No, ma'am.
You testified that when you arrived at 1111 Bellevue that there were a lot of news cameras.
Yes,
There were a lot of law enforcement, if you recall.
yes.
It was kind of a chaotic scene.
I wouldn't say chaotic, but it was officers and cameras at the scene.
You were told that you were not notified what the case was involving before arriving at 1111 Bellevue. Is that correct?
Exactly.
You were only told that it was a shooting incident.
We were told that we were collecting for a search warrant.
For a shooting incident.
We were told we were collecting for a search warrant.
Okay, so you weren't told anything.
Again, as my report says on the first page, as you look at the first line, the information received request to process the scene of a search warrant and arrest at the address 1111 Bellevue from District 1 Dispatch.
And I thought that in your direct testimony with the prosecutor that you said that you were notified that the case was involving a shooting incident and that 2 people were arrested.
Your Honor, just to clear up, I'm not sure at the time of when he was notified, at the scene versus before he left. So I just want a clarification.
Do you recall testifying in that way?
Not only, what I said, if we're talking about this specific time, was when we were informed from District 1 it was search warrant. When we arrived, that's when we understood it was connected to the shooting incident.
So after you arrived at 1111 Bellevue?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. You said that when you initially get to a scene, you walk through and the officer in charge points out items of interest that he or she wants collected.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you may also walk through with your partner and identify additional things.
Yes, ma'am.
And we saw some of those things today, like the tote that you ended up taking photos of where the purse was. Is that
Yes,
correct? You testified that you collected 14 cigarette butts. And you can look at your report if you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll stipulate he said 14.
Yeah, 14.
He hasn't slept again.
And it's your understanding that, from your recollection, those cigarette butts were collected next to a Kia that we had a photograph of.
Yes, sir.
You testified that inside of the plastic bag, in I believe it was exhibit 334, that there was a bank envelope. Looking at the bag now, do you see what that was?
The picture's kind of blurry, but it still looks like a bank envelope.
Okay, it doesn't look like a business card?
To me, it looks like a bank envelope with the black spots on the top of it.
Exhibit 339, the prosecutor asked you to look at the inside of a garbage can, if you recall, and there was a whiskey bottle inside the garbage can.
Yes.
You don't know how that whiskey bottle got there?
No.
You have no knowledge of how long it had been there?
No.
You have no information about it whatsoever?
No, all I know is the whiskey bottle garbage can.
And you were just taking a photograph of what was on the scene when you got there?
Yes, ma'am.
In Exhibit 347, you talked about bank envelopes and a search warrant tabulation return, which was on a table.
Yes.
It wasn't hidden anywhere, correct?
The search warrant or
the tabulation was not hidden anywhere. It was just sitting on a table when you took the photograph?
Yes.
And you completed the search that you arrived on scene around 2 a.m. and you were done around 5 a.m.?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
And the photographs that you took photographs of cash. You don't know what that cash was for. That's fair. Because again, you were just taking photographs of what was on the scene when you got there.
It was cash in the purse that I collected.
Right. Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Just one point for clarification. You said you took pictures for, in case there for document any injuries. Did you?
Objection, Your Honor. I didn't ask anything about those photographs.
She did.
I believe that she did, and if not, I'm offering some clarification.
Your Honor, I would object to any questions about the photographs that were taken of my client after he was arrested. I didn't ask anything about that on my cross.
Yeah, I did see the scope of cross. I'm not going to allow it.
Okay. Is this witness excused?
Yes. Can you step
Thank you.
back? What's the next one?
Tim Willis.
lieutenant, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you raise your hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the true self of God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you step up and have a seat? And then state your name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Timothy Willis, TIMOTHY WILLIS.
May I proceed, Judge?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. How are you employed?
Detective Lieutenant with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
Approaching 28 years.
Okay. You said you're a detective lieutenant right now?
Yes.
Tell us, please, what that means.
I oversee a handful of divisions within the Sheriff's Office, the Special Investigations Unit, which I know we've mentioned at court, the Fugitive Apprehension Team, our Computer Crimes, which Detective Wodrowski had worked for, and our Warrants Division.
Okay. And we'll get into some of that in a little more detail. Is it fair to say that you're the officer in charge of this case, or one of the officers in charge?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Just to clear something up quickly, when James Crumbley was arrested on December the 4th, 2021, did he have any injuries?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Now, going back to your role as detective lieutenant, we've talked a little bit about the Special Investigative Unit. Can we talk a little bit more detail about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, please, what sort of cases would a member of the Special Investigative Unit handle?
Yeah, so the Special Investigations Unit is a support services arm of the Sheriff's Office. So we take a lot of requests from other agencies, from our own substations. Oftentimes we handle political cases, complex cases, high-profile cases, things of that nature.
Okay, and prior to your current role, what other roles did you have with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, prior to my role as the Detective Lieutenant Special Investigations, I was also the Detective Lieutenant in charge of our Auto Theft Unit, our Friend of the Court Division, our Arson Division.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to November the 30th, 2021.
Okay,
Do you remember that day?
I do.
Were you notified of an active shooter situation at Oxford High School that afternoon?
Yes,
Can you tell us, please, where you were when you were made aware of that?
I was actually at the prosecutor's office at the time. I was made aware discussing another matter. The prosecutor and her chief assistant came in and advised me that there had been a shooting at the Oxford High School.
So what did you do with that? What did you do next?
For context, about, I don't know, a couple months before that, we had a false alarm, if you will, at another school. So initially, that was immediately what I went to, was this is probably another false alarm. But I picked up my phone and I made a phone call. I've thought about it a million times. I have no idea who I called, but I do remember the response was, this is a real thing. This is real.
Okay. So tell us what you did, please.
I obviously, ran downstairs or took the elevator downstairs, ran to my vehicle, and immediately proceeded to the Oxford High School with my lights and sirens activated.
Okay. Do you recall the approximate time you would have arrived at Oxford High School?
I think it around 1:20 in the afternoon, approximately.
Okay. Tell us what you saw as you arrived on scene.
There was the largest emergency first response that I've ever seen in my career, and second place isn't even close. When I got there, there were students were being evacuated, and more and more officers were rushing in. EMS was on scene. I vaguely recall our helicopter flying above. It was just something I'd only seen on TV before. Nothing I'd ever experienced.
Okay. So at that point in time when you arrived, was the scene still active?
It was, yes.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as People's 9. Is that screen in front of you working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this is a map of the Oxford High School?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as you pull up on scene, you made those observations. Tell us where you went next.
Just understand, there's a lot of the day that I don't recall very well, so I don't remember where I parked. But I do remember going through the front office entrance area. It would be, you see office 200? That door right there? Yeah.
This door right
Yeah.
here?
I do remember going through there. It was being held open by officers. And that's where I met then Lieutenant Todd Hill, who was the incident commander.
Okay, what's an incident commander?
So Lieutenant Hill had assumed incident command because, as you can imagine, I explained to you, there was so much disorganization in the early, I mean, we had no idea what we were responding to. My police radio was blowing up with calls of, we think there's an additional shooter here. We think someone's fleeing from the scene here. I mean, it was chaos. So Lieutenant Hill assumed that role and started organizing resources for the sweeps of the school, for any secondary explosive devices or any additional shooters, to identify victims, things of that nature. So that was going on as I had arrived at the school.
Okay. So we've identified you as, and you've identified yourself as the officer in charge of the investigation.
That's correct.
That's different than incident commander, though?
Yes, the incident commander's role, I mean, especially in a case like this, because of the hundreds of emergency first responders that were flooding into the school, Lieutenant Hill, he's a captain now, so if I use him interchangeably, but Lieutenant Hill at the time handled the securing of the building, and evacuating wounded, injured, and because of my role in the Special Investigations Unit, the fact is that I was in charge of the Special Investigation Unit at the time, I assumed the role of the investigative lead, which is often referred to as the officer in charge.
Okay, if you could please give us a little bit of an idea of what an officer in charge typically does in a case.
So, an officer in charge of an investigation typically, at its most basic, we investigate the scene, meaning we determine what property needs to be, or what evidence needs to be collected, what witnesses need to be identified and spoken to, identifying potential victims, things of that nature. We also work with the prosecutor's office to determine charging, whatever charges, if any, that are going to come from the incident.
Okay. Now, would it be fair to say that in this particular case, there's a massive amount of information that was reviewed?
Yeah, so one of the more problematic things about this case is the amount of information that was coming in. If you can imagine social media tips and emails and everything like that, 911 calls coming in. It was information overload, and all the best we could do was just try to process things as they came.
Okay. Now, so it would be fair to say that you've reviewed the evidence in this case, at least in a supervisory role.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I'm going to start off with your testimony where we left off the last few witnesses, and I'll go through the exhibits that have been admitted already. This is Exhibit 361. So a little bit of background here, sir. Were you made aware that the defendant, James Crumbley, and his wife, Jennifer Crumbley's phones were seized the evening of November the 30th? Yes,
as part of the, if I can back up just a second.
Sure.
So as the OIC, there was a point in time where I advised, and it was just announced basically, that if you're an investigator, come see me, because I knew there were so many things jobs that needed to be done. So a handful of investigators were sent to different hospitals, area hospitals, whether we knew that there were victims there or not. We had some reason to believe that there were victims being shipped everywhere. Lieutenant Myre's band was handling, once the shooter was identified, handling the scene at the shooter's address, Special Agent Brandon had come up to assist me in identifying the murder weapon. So there was just, and I actually had a scribe next to me just jotting down as fast as she could when I would make an assignment, who was doing it and what the assignment was, because it was just it was a ton of information.
So I think we'll back it up a little bit further.
Okay.
Now you're aware of when James Crumbley was charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Yes.
Okay, when was that?
He was charged with involuntary manslaughter. I believe it was around noon on December 3rd.
Okay, so the shooting was Tuesday, November 30th, and there's Wednesday, December 1st, Thursday the 2nd, and Friday the 3rd.
That's correct.
Okay. Now tell us, sir, what happens when someone is charged with a felony in Michigan?
So when the prosecutor authorizes a charge, gives it to the officer in charge, I take it before a judge, and I swear to the facts of the case. It's called a swear to. And then the judge determines whether or not the information held within that complaint and warrant is sufficient to support a charge.
Okay, is that public or is that done in private?
That's all public.
Okay. And did you do that in this particular case?
I did.
Okay, you personally?
I did.
And was there also a swear to of the defendant's son?
Yes,
Okay, that would have been Wednesday, December the 1st, 2021?
that is correct.
Okay, was that likewise public?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And when I say public, I mean open to the public?
There were, yes, open to the public and media present.
Okay. Was James Crumbley there for his son's swear to?
Objection on irrelevance.
Judge, the jury's going to get an instruction regarding 4.4. A lot of the evidence is regarding the timeline of where they were from November the 30th to December the 4th in the early morning.
I think where they were and the knowledge they had is relevant, so I'm not allowed.
Thank you, Judge. Sir, Wednesday, December the 1st, there was a swear to of the defendant's son?
That's correct.
Okay, and was James Crumbley there for that?
He was not in person, no.
Okay. And he was on Zoom?
He was on a Zoom from what appeared to be his vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've already heard from Dave Hendrick, who was, at the time, the sergeant in charge of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office Fugitive Apprehension Team. Part of your role as detective lieutenant, would that be supervising the Fugitive Apprehension Team?
Yes.
Okay. So, did you assign him with his task of locating James and Jennifer Crumbley on Thursday, December the 2nd?
I did.
Okay, and tell me about that, please.
So, as I stated earlier, the officer in charge of cases presents information basically to make it clear to a prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney, in discussions with the officer in charge, determines what, if any, charges are going to come from it. We, at the time the shooter was charged, volumes of information was going into the prosecutor's office, and there was discussions on December 2nd about the possibility of charging the shooter's parents with involuntary manslaughter.
Okay, is that why you made that call to Sergeant Hendrick, or retired Sergeant Hendrick?
Yeah, what we knew at the time, the only thing that I knew at the time, and again, there was a lot of irons in the fire, the only thing I knew at the time is they weren't at their residence. They weren't actively staying at their residence. So I thought it was important that we try to locate them.
Okay. So now going back to Exhibit 361 on the screen here, you had mentioned that you had assigned Lieutenant Marsban with a search warrant of the defendant's home at 112 East in Oxford.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so that occurred on Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you made aware that their phones were seized as part of that search warrant?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And all right. We talked a little bit about track phone or burner phone, how they're referred to interchangeably. Were you made aware, did you learn that the defendant and his wife purchased those phones?
I was,
Okay.
yes.
And so what's in Exhibit 361?
So this is a receipt from the Walmart in Lapeer, Michigan, for the purchase of the track phones.
Okay, so just for a timeline, this is at November 30th, 21 at 8:01 p.m.?
That's correct.
Okay. This is Exhibit 362. What are we looking at here?
This is a receipt for the Holiday Inn Express. So the shooting was on the 30th. They checked in on the 30th, and they departed on the next day.
Okay. And Do you recall where this Holiday Inn Express was located?
Yes, that's the Holiday Express in Lapeer.
Now, they checked out on Wednesday, December the 1st. Did you learn where they stayed that day, that evening?
I did.
Okay, this is Exhibit 365. What is this?
Yeah, this is the receipt for the extended stay, check-in date for in Auburn Hills. The check-in date is December 1st, and the checkout date was December 3rd.
So December 1st is the Wednesday, the 3rd is the Friday. Is this the location, we heard from retired Sergeant Hendrick about a vehicle being abandoned. Is this the location he's referring to?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's in this 366. What do we have here?
This is the vehicle we come to learn to be the defendant's vehicle.
You said they checked out on Friday, December the 3rd?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell us, please, the relative location from this particular hotel to the closest police department.
The Auburn Hills Police Department from that location is basically across the street. It's not far.
Now, regarding Exhibit 361, just so we're clear, it's your understanding that they were actually told to purchase these phones. Is that correct?
That is correct. So,
Okay.
Detective Sergeant Bryan, who testified earlier, he had advised them, or maybe it was Lieutenant Myre's band, I can't recall, but said, "Hey, look, we're taking your phones. At this point, it's evidence, and which is common. And then we often advise them, so you have a means of communication, because people don't typically have house phones anymore. We just automatically tell them usually to just pick up a couple of track phones."
Okay. And were they permitted to obtain contact information from their phones before they were seized?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Now, specifically on Thursday, December the 2nd, 2021, did you or members of your team uncover evidence that James and Jennifer Crumbley obtained cash through withdrawals?
That's correct.
Okay, this is Exhibit 367. What are we looking at here?
This is a withdrawal from Flagstar on December 2nd for the amount of $2,000.
Okay. Now, Mr. Rogowski, who testified about the burner phones, also mentioned replacement phones, so new phones with the old numbers ported to them. Did you learn when James and Jennifer Crumbley purchased those?
I did.
Right. This is Exhibit 368. What are we looking at here?
This is a T-Mobile in Owasso, Michigan, and this is the receipt on December 2nd at 11 a.m., 11:17 a.m., and this is where they purchased new phones with their original phone numbers on them.
Okay, so this is Thursday, December 2nd. At this point, they were staying at that hotel in Auburn Hills next to the police station, and this was purchased in Owasso, Michigan?
That is correct.
Do you know the relative distance between the two locations?
It's about an hour's drive per Google Maps.
Okay, each direction?
Yes, sorry.
So we saw the record that indicated they checked out of that Auburn Hills hotel on Friday, December 3rd. Did you uncover evidence that they had obtained more cash that day?
Yes, I did.
This is Exhibit 367. What are we looking at here?
This is a withdrawal from Flagstar on December 3rd for the amount of $4,000.
Was evidence uncovered to suggest that they had transferred money from their son's account?
Yes.
All right, this is Exhibit 370. What is this?
This is a Flagstar withdrawal from a Simply Kids Savings. There's two withdrawals. There's 1129,
In the amount of what?
$292, and then
Okay.
there's a second withdrawal on the 30th the following day of $3,000.
Okay, what was the balance left in this Simply Kids savings account?
The remaining balance was 99 cents.
Okay, and that was the day of the shooting, the 30th?
The 30th, yes, sir.
Do you know where the defendant and his wife went after they left the Auburn Hills hotel?
Yes, once they left the Auburn Hills Hotel, they went to the address in Detroit on Bellevue.
Okay, and that's we've heard testimony from Mr. Kirtley and And the Detroit police officers, 1111 Bellevue in Detroit?
1111 Bellevue, correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you portions of surveillance video. We saw some of this earlier. This is different clips. This is exhibits 371 and 372. So 371 is first. And again, so we know the timestamp is actually 22 minutes off. I think we've already clarified that. So the record is clear. The actual time here is 10:58 a.m. Is that your understanding as well, sir?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And just tell us, please, sir, when you see anybody you recognize.
The man walking with his phone, I believe, is the leasee of the suite or room or whatever that the Crumbleys were staying in.
That was Suite 130?
130.
Okay.
The vehicle coming in is the vehicle that we identified as Jennifer Crumbley's Kia.
And the Kia that was left at the Auburn Hills was identified as James Crumbley's Kia?
That's right.
Do you recognize either individual exiting from what was identified as Jennifer Crumbley's Kia?
I recognize both individuals,
Okay. Tell us who, please.
James Crumbley and Jennifer Crumbley.
And where is the defendant, James Crumbley, in this video?
He's walking up now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right here?
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is the location they were found at 1:30 a.m. the next day, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
1111 Bellevue, okay.
Yep.
Now, that car was pulled in with the front facing forward, is that right?
That is right.
Okay, did you come to learn that the defendant moved that car subsequent to pulling up at 10:58 a.m.?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as 372. So this is just before 4 p.m. on December the 3rd?
That's correct.
So according to your testimony, this would be about 4 hours after he was charged with 4 homicide offenses?
That's correct.
Your Honor, I would object to that question. Mr. Keast indicated that James Crumbley was charged with homicide offenses.
This is a homicide.
I think we've been clear that this is an involuntary manslaughter case, Your Honor.
It's a homicide.
It goes by both names. The title of the charge is homicide involuntary manslaughter.
Correct.
You're both right.
May I
Sir.
answer?
Yeah, please.
So that was at 4:17. At 4 o'clock was the time that the judge had ordered the defendant and his wife to turn themselves in.
Okay, so when it became clear that they hadn't turned themselves in, was their license plate made public?
Yes, it was.
Was the license plate on the front or the back of the vehicle?
In Michigan, we only require the license plate on the rear of the vehicle. I've worked fugitive investigations. Oftentimes, fugitives will back into a spot to attempt to hide their license plate, and also it's easier to get away if necessary.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were no arrangements to have a surrender with this defendant or his wife. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So at the time this occurred, there was no plan with law enforcement to turn himself in.
No, sir.
And in fact, someone with a valid felony arrest warrant, they don't get to choose when they get to turn themselves in, do they?
Absolutely not.
Now, sir, I'm going to go back to November the 30th, 2021. In the afternoon, you had already assumed investigative command. Would that be right while you were on scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said you met with Special Agent Brandon while on scene at the high school?
I did.
Okay, and what did you task him with?
I tasked him with tracing, frankly, he offered. He came to me and said, do you know who the registered owner of the gun was? And at the time, I did not. He testified earlier, and you heard that it was secured in a garbage can. One of our officers, upon the arrest of the shooter, pulled out the garbage bag portion of it and took just the plastic waste bin and put the gun to keep it all centrally located because searches were still going on and whatever. That officer turned it over to me. I took my post in the front office there. I sat it next to me. At some point during the day, Special Agent Brandon came to me and said, hey, have you identified the owner of this weapon yet? And I had not. So he's like, I'm the ATF. Sounded like a really good idea to have him track this down, and he got right on it.
Okay, and was that information relayed back to you fairly quickly?
It was.
And did you learn that that murder weapon was in fact purchased November the 26th, 2021?
Yes.
Now, you learned the identity of the shooter while you were still at the high school, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier that you had tasked Lieutenant Marsban with securing the family home and securing a search warrant.
Yes.
Now, at that time, did you know if there were any other casualties outside of the school?
We did not. Like I said, I'd gotten some information from area hospitals that some wounded were coming in. So at that point, we're like, well, there's several hospitals in the general facility, so we had to assign officers out to different hospitals to make sure that we could locate and identify any potential victims.
Okay, so when you sent officers there, they didn't know what to find, what to expect?
No clue.
All right. Now, at some point, was there a concern about explosives in the school?
Yeah, so as I was stating earlier, I was getting sent and others were getting sent and observed Twitter, now X posts, Instagram posts, YouTube videos, and we had came across a YouTube video of the defendant's son making a secondary explosive device, potentially more commonly known as a Molotov cocktail, and detonating it. We, at the time, and we'll talk, I guess, about the journal, we found some information in the journal that suggests that there may be secondary devices in place within the school. That prolonged my ability to go and investigate the scene of the crime because we had to continually sweep to make sure the area was completely safe.
Okay, and in fact, did you have to call in a specialized unit to handle that?
We did, yes, Captain Hill, he activated the Michigan State bomb squad with their bomb dogs, and they came in with their robot.
Now, were you able to determine what area, what room or area of the school specifically the shooter left right before he began shooting?
Yes, it was the bathroom adjacent to room 258.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been admitted as people 16. What are we looking at here?
This is the backpack and contents that the shooter was seen, observed wearing, walking into the bathroom prior to the shooting beginning.
Okay. Now, was this photograph taken after the location was made safe by the bomb squad?
That's correct.
Okay. And they didn't find any explosive devices?
They did not.
Okay. Now, what do you see in this picture? What was seized as evidence?
The most obvious thing is you see the book open, that is the shooter's journal.
Okay. Did you have the opportunity to review that journal?
I did. I have.
All right. Were you able to identify it as being written by the shooter?
Yes, sir.
How were you able to make that identification?
First of all, his name's in it. That was the most glaring way to identify that it was his. His writing is unique and it matched some homework and other writings that we saw. There's references to several incidents that occurred in the school within the month of November, things of that nature.
Okay, so you, from the content of the journal itself, you're able to put a time frame on when the journal was likely written?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about that.
The first date written would have been November 9th. But it did reference incidents that happened before that.
Okay, in the month of November?
In the month of November,
Okay,
yes.
as well as incidents that happened after that in the month of November?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many pages of writing are contained in that journal?
22.
Okay. So is it filled with writing from front to back, or is it at different parts, or how is it organized?
No, it actually appears to be written from back to front, and it stops about a quarter way through.
Okay. Now, of the 22 pages, is there, I guess, a title page or something to signify the end of the journal, end of the writing?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
to answer your question simply, yes.
So out of the pages with writing in that journal, how many contain reference to the school shooting?
All 22.
Now, for the record, I'm going to show you some of these slides, or some of these passages rather from the journal, and I'm going to refer to them by page number, and just so you're clear, sir, they're indicated page 1 from where the writing starts to page 22, which would be the back binding of that journal. Is that accurate?
Understood, yes.
Okay. Now, is the journal in written format or were drawings contained as well?
Both.
Okay. Were there any passages in this journal that you noted indicative of the shooter's request for mental health help?
Yes.
This is People's 359. Can you read what's written in this passage, please?
Yes. I have zero help, and help is bolded, for my mental problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the fucking school.
This is page 5. For the record, that was page 6 on the journal. Same exhibit, page 5. Could you read that, please?
Yes. I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, so I can't get any help.
Okay. That's page 5. This is page 19. What does this say?
My parents won't listen to me about help or a therapist.
All right. Now, were there any journal entries about the shooter's desire to obtain a 9mm handgun?
Yes, sir.
Same exhibit, page 3. Can you tell us what this is, please?
Yes. The shooter writes, so we should be bound to get my SD 9VE soon.
Okay. Now, that specific term, SD9VE, did you see that anywhere else in this case?
Yes, I did.
This is People's 85 and 86. What do we see here?
This is a picture of a Smith & Wesson model number SD9VE that was for sale that was extracted from the defendant's phone.
Okay, and Mr. Rogowski testified this was from Monday, November the 8th, sent from the defendant's son to the defendant in a message that was deleted. You were here for that testimony?
Yes, I was.
Now back to the journal. This is page 22. Can you please read us what this says?
Yes. The shooter writes, I want to shoot up the fucking school so badly. Soon I am going to buy a 9mm pistol.
Same exhibit, page 17. Go ahead.
All I need is my 9mm pistol, which I am currently begging my dad for.
And page 22.
I will
This is the binding, right?
The binding,
22?
correct.
Okay, go ahead.
I will have to find where my dad hid my 9mm before I can shoot the school.
Okay. And page 15.
Unfortunately, my dad does not want me to get the 9mm gun, and we are having financial problems, RN for right now. And I don't have a job, so now I'm pissed because I want to do the shooting with a 9mm pistol as they are effective for killing. But RN right now, all I got is a puny 22 LR Keltec that I don't know where my dad hid it.
Okay, and we heard evidence in this case that James Crumbley obtained a 22 caliber Keltec pistol in June of 2021. Is that right?
That is right. Yep.
Were there journal entries regarding the shooter's plan?
Yes.
Okay. Here's page 3, same exhibit. Can you read this, please?
I'm about to shoot up the school and spend the rest of my life in prison.
Sir, did you find any journal entries regarding the shooter's access to the 9mm?
Yes, I did.
Same exhibit. This is also page 3. Go ahead.
Excuse me. First off, I got my gun. It's a SP 2022 6-hour 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the gun and the ammo. I am fully committed to now. So yeah, I'm going to prison for life, and many people have about 1 day left to live.
Now, sir, we saw one of the journal entries that had the word help, all bold, that was across a couple of lines. Were there any other writings or passages in that bolded format?
Yes, there were, sir.
Were there pictures in the journal as well?
Yes, there were.
Okay, like what?
There's a picture of what appears to be an arm fully extended out with a gun pointed to the back of what appears to be a female's head.
Okay. And was that a little picture or a large picture in it?
It took up about that much of the page.
Okay, so to reference...
Oh, I'm sorry, about 3-4 inches of the page.
Now, was this journal a full-size book like this legal notepad, or was it smaller?
It was small. Far side.
Just going to mark this for a demonstrative exhibit. This will be 381. This is a demonstrative exhibit. Any first witness?
Any objections?
None, Your Honor, just for demonstrative purposes.
Sure. Put a pair of gloves and just take that off so we can see. Can you just hold it up for the jury so they can see, please? And Thank you, sir. And that's what's depicted here in People 16 that we're referring to?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
If this was laid open.
Yeah, first one.
Sure.
Would you mind putting it back in? Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, we've heard evidence and we've heard the 911 call that James Crumbley made on Tuesday, November 30th at 1:34 p.m. You're aware of that call?
Yes, sir.
And you were in court when it was played?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we've also heard testimony that the Myre and Ray Road next to the high school was the emergency location for Oxford High School parents in case of emergency at the high school.
The reallocation point, yeah.
Yes. And did the police likewise notify the community of that as well?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Do you recall when that occurred?
I believe the first 911 call that the sheriff's office dispatch advised that the Myre will be the relocation point was at approximately 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock in that day. So
Okay.
just 10 minutes or so after the shooting.
Okay, so the shooting began at 12:51 p.m. This was 1 p.m. the same day?
Yes, sir.
Are you aware how many 911 calls were placed to dispatch in that time period?
Yeah.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Yeah, how is it relevant?
He's going to testify as to who identified their son as the shooter, Judge.
Okay, but that's not relevant to how many 911 existing, but that's not relevant.
How many people identified their son as the shooter?
Just one.
Okay. Nobody else?
Nobody else.
Was there more than one 911 call?
There was.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe that is relevant. How many 911 calls is it relevant, but I guess out of those, how many?
It gives the answer context, Judge.
Okay.
How many 911 calls were placed at that day?
112 were able to be answered within the immediacy of the shooting.
Okay, and out of those 112, how many identified their son as the suspect?
Just one, the defendant.
Okay. Sir, as the officer in charge, you've reviewed the surveillance video of Oxford High School.
Yes, I have.
Okay. We're going to play that now. Judge, could you please instruct the media not to film?
Can you remind me how long it is? I just want to decide whether or not the jury should have a break first or after.
It's just a few minutes, Judge.
Okay, I think it was maybe one. Okay.
It might be a good idea to take a break after.
Okay. Can you not videotape the video that we're about to play? And I also want to alert any victims or victims' family in the courtroom that we're about to play the video.
Your Honor, I'm objecting for the reasons previously stated.
I understand.
May I proceed, Judge?
Sure.
Just so we understand the date and time, we have a time stamp and date stamp at the bottom here. November 30th, 2021. This is at 12:46 p.m., is that right?
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to...
And prosecutor, it's correct, there's no audio.
Correct, there's no audio. Let me know, please, when you recognize the shooter in this frame.
He just walked out and made a left. You'll be able to see him more clearly momentarily. He's about to enter right now.
Okay, the individual turning into the bathroom there is the defendant's son?
That is the defendant's son, yes.
Okay, so for the record, this is 12:46 p.m.?
Correct.
And this video it skips with time delay, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is 12:51 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a break, Jeff.
Yes, Lieutenant, you can step down, but you may not discuss your testimony with someone. All right, you can step down. We have about a 10-minute break. All right.
All rise for the jury.
Be seated and please remain seated while the defendant is removed.
All rise.
Are we ready for the
Yes, Your Honor.
All rise for the jury.
All right, you may be seated. Lieutenant, you are still under oath, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Pease.
Thank you. Lieutenant Willis, the video we just saw had some split screens in that. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just so we're clear, that was, Mr. Bobrowski testified to nearly 100 surveillance cameras, and he spliced the video together.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was just, it was depicting the same time, but just different angles of the same hallway?
That's correct.
Okay. Sir, could you tell us, please, who was wounded on November 30th?
The wounded was Phoebe Arthur, Elijah Mueller, Riley Franz, Kali Osage, Molly Darnell, John Asciuto, and Aiden Watson.
Thank you. May I approach witness?
Sure.
This is admitted as People's One. Sir, what have I handed you?
This is the autopsy protocol for Hana St. Juliana.
Okay. Sir, who was killed November the 30th, 2021?
That's correct.
This is Exhibit 5. Sir, how old was Hana?
She was 14.
And how did she die?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the reading of the autopsy protocol into the record.
He's not
It's been
reading.
admitted.
He's not reading the autopsy protocol.
They're being admitted as exhibits 1 through 4, correct?
That's correct, Judge.
All right, so I think it was a question.
How did she die?
She died of multiple gunshot wounds.
May I approach the witness?
Sure.
This is Exhibit 2. What is that?
This is the autopsy protocol for Madisyn Baldwin.
And this is a picture of Madisyn and people 6 on the screen.
Yes.
How did she die, sir?
She had a gunshot wound to the head.
She was 17 years old.
Yes, sir.
This is Exhibit 3. So what have I handed you?
Autopsy protocol for Tate Myre, and he was 16 years old.
And how did he die?
He died from multiple gunshot wounds.
And this is Exhibit 4. That's an autopsy protocol?
Yes, sir. This is for Justin Shilling. He was 17 years old.
And how did he die, sir?
Died of a gunshot wound to the head.
And those are the 4 students who were killed inside Oxford High School on November the 30th, 2021?
That's correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Cross.
Good afternoon, Detective Guzman.
Good afternoon.
Go back to November 30th of 2021.
when you were made aware of the shooting at Oxford High School.
Okay,
You testified today that you were at the prosecutor's office,
I was.
and you were advised, you said by the prosecutor and her chief assistant, that was the chief prosecutor, Ms. McDonald,
Correct.
and her chief assistant came to the office where you were discussing another case.
We were in a conference room in their office, and they came. Yes.
The prosecutor asked you about the swear-tos that were conducted, both for the charges made against him and the charges alleged against his son as well, the charge made against his son. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
And the prosecutor confirmed with you that the process for the swear-to is open to the public.
That's correct.
You said that both the public and the media were present at the swear-tos for both Mr. Crumbley's son and also Mr. Crumbley.
That's right.
For Mr. Crumbley's son, you made note that Mr. Crumbley was not present in person for the swear-to in the arraignment.
Yes, I stated he was he was there on Zoom.
And if you recall, his son was also on Zoom for the arraignment. Is that correct?
His son was in custody.
Okay.
Yeah,
But he was not there in person in custody, if you recall.
that's correct.
After the Oxford High School shooting on November 30th of 2021, do you recall receiving tips and receiving information and were made aware of concerns for the safety of James and Jennifer Crumbley after their son's name had been made public, if you recall?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall that their residence had been identified publicly?
I don't recall it, but if I can explain, I think I do know that there was media was there, but I don't recall it being released anywhere, if that makes sense.
And I'm not suggesting that law enforcement released that location. Obviously, you talked about the social media posts,
Yes.
that there was a lot of information coming into you and your department. There was a lot of information being made public that wasn't necessarily true. There was a lot going on at the time on November 30th of 2021, separate from the tragedy at the school.
That's fair.
You said that on December 2nd of 2021, that you and the prosecutor's office were having discussions about possibly charging James and Jennifer Crumbley.
That's correct.
You know that at some point on December 2nd of 2021, not necessarily the nature of not the content of the discussions, but the nature of the discussions about potentially charging was made public.
I'm not familiar with that.
If you recall, there were media reports and information put out into the media that James and Jennifer may be facing charges.
That may be true. At that point, I was completely involved. Like, there was things that came out in the media that people tell me about today I have no idea about, because I wasn't.
Yes, and you had a lot going on. And obviously, when I ask you a question, I'm just asking you questions
understand.
about what you know about.
I understand.
You knew on December 2nd, you testified today that you knew on December 2nd of 2021 that James and Jennifer Crumbley were not staying at their residence.
Yes.
You knew that they'd left on November 30th of 2021.
Correct.
And that was before charges had been announced against them?
Yes.
And before there was any sort of information that may have been put into the media that charges may be forthcoming?
Yes.
That was in fact the day of the actual Oxford High School shooting that they stopped staying at their residence.
To my understanding, yes.
The prosecutor showed you Exhibit 362, which is a Holiday Inn Express receipt, correct?
Yes.
And if you recall, the room was registered to Jennifer Crumbley,
I believe you.
if you recall.
I don't recall,
Okay.
but I believe you.
You know that at some point on December 1st, James and Jennifer left. Oh, and before I go past that, you also know that on November 30th that James and Jennifer Crumbley obtained those track phones from the Walmart in Lapeer.
Yes.
And we looked at that receipt as well.
Yes.
And you testified that you learned during your investigation that there was a conversation either with Detective Sergeant Bryan or Lieutenant Marsden about James and Jennifer obtaining those phones.
Yes.
And the purpose was because they had given their phones to law enforcement and they didn't have any way to communicate with people, if you recall the information they were given.
They were taken in a search warrant. Whether they gave them to, I guess, is subjective. But yeah, we obtained them, and it's my understanding the advice given to them, which again isn't uncommon, is that purchase some track phones so you could maintain communications.
Exhibit 365, you know that on December 1st of 2021 that James and Jennifer left that Holiday Inn in Lapeer and checked into an extended stay in Auburn Hills.
What day did you say?
December 1st of 2021.
Yes.
Now Lapeer, for those who aren't familiar, is north of Oxford.
It is.
It's north of Auburn Hills.
It is.
So they left the Lapeer area and came down to Auburn Hills, which is 15 minutes south of Oxford. I could be wrong about the time.
But you referenced Lapeer essentially borders Oxford,
Okay.
and
On the north
north side, and then you got Rochester. 20 minutes. I don't know.
Okay, I won't lock you into a time. But they came, and they came slightly south of, still in Oakland County, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You noted specifically that there was an Auburn Hills Police Department across the street from the extended stay.
Yes.
Now, you know that Jennifer and James Crumbley checked out of the extended stay on December 3rd of 2021,
Yes.
which was that Friday.
Yes.
You don't know what time they left the hotel, correct?
If the checkout's on the. But do I know? No.
You know what time checkout is,
Yes.
based on the receipt and the documents, correct?
Yes.
But you don't know what time they left, whether if it was at checkout or before. You have no idea.
That's right.
At some point on Exhibit 368 is the T-Mobile receipts from the T-Mobile in Owasso.
Okay.
Those are dated December 2nd of 2021,
Okay.
if you recall.
Yes, I do.
And there was some conversation about the distance that Owasso is from Auburn Hills, because on December 2nd of 2021, James and Jennifer Crumbley had been staying at the extended stay in Auburn Hills.
Yes, and I believe they went to Owasso to get their phones.
Right. They drove to Owasso to get their phones and then went back to the extended stay, from what you understand.
Yes.
So they didn't stay in Owasso, correct? Overnight, to your knowledge?
No.
Okay. Now, you are aware that after the Oxford High School shooting, there were a variety of reactions and emotions to what occurred at Oxford High School.
Yes.
There was terror.
From whom?
Anyone at the school.
More than likely.
There was anger.
Are you
I'm
just
speaking
talking
in general. In general.
I would guess after an incident like that, every emotion imaginable could be
Right.
put out there.
You're aware that once the identity of the shooter at Oxford High School was made public, you were also made aware during your investigation that a lot of that anger, or some of that anger, was directed toward the parents of the shooter, James and Jennifer Crumbley.
I can't say specifically, no.
Exhibits 371 and 372 were the videos from 1111 Bellevue in Detroit. You noted that there was a difference of 22 minutes on the timestamp on the video from the actual time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the video was 22 minutes ahead of what the actual clock time was, if you recall.
I think that's right.
Okay. The video, I believe it's 371, shows that James and Jennifer arrived at approximately 10:59 a.m. at 1111 Bellevue.
Okay.
And that was prior to the swear-to that you testified was conducted at noon?
That I believe it was around noon, correct?
Okay. And again, I'm not asking you to lock in on the exact time, if it was 12:01 or 12:02 or whatever the time may be, but 10:59 is obviously before around noon.
It is.
And the two videos that you were shown, that Exhibit 372 is after 4 p.m., where it shows that James Crumbley walked out of the building and turned the car around and then went back in the building.
Yes. Was it 417 or something like that? 416?
Correct. So the two clips that you saw, there were actually many, many clips from throughout that day, if you recall, that you've reviewed as part of your investigation.
Yes.
In fact, as part of your investigation, you reviewed those clips and know that one or both of James and or Jennifer Crumbley were in and out of that building on more than one occasion on December 3rd of 2021.
I don't recall.
Do you recall that there was video of James specifically leaving the building to smoke and going back in on more than one time?
I can't say. I don't know.
And we heard, you were in here when Investigator Creer testified,
Yes.
and he talked about finding, I believe he said 14 cigarette butts next to the Kia
Yes.
in the 1111 Bellevue parking lot.
Yes.
So you don't specifically recall whether or not James and Jennifer did leave the building. You don't recall whether they didn't. It's fair to say you just don't recall.
That's right.
You testified that at 4 o'clock, a judge ordered James and his wife to turn themselves in.
Yes.
You don't know whether James had knowledge of that order from the judge.
I mean, it's safe. I mean, there's some evidence in my mind that points to that he was aware.
You did not see anything in your review of the case and of the evidence that you've obtained in this case to suggest that James was not going to turn himself in. And I'm not asking about anything that you've seen that you may or may not be able to talk about, but I'm asking specifically, you haven't seen anything to suggest that they weren't going to turn
She'll have
themselves
to
in.
object to the form of the question. She can't try to pigeonhole a witness if he has more information and then limit the answer in his basic knowledge.
Well, it was kind of a long question too, so, but you're specifically asking him.
Your Honor, I'll rephrase my questions a little bit because it was multiple questions. You asked, and we heard the testimony, you asked retired Sergeant Hendrick to locate James and Jennifer Crumbley on December 2nd of 2021.
That's correct.
That was on the date that there were discussions about potentially charging James and Jennifer Crumbley.
That's correct.
On December 3rd of 2021, they had not been located at that time, earlier in the day.
What time?
Before dark.
No, they weren't located.
They were
To my
located,
knowledge, they weren't located.
right. To your knowledge, they were located later in the day, and we heard the testimony about that information, correct?
Yes.
You testified about a video, I believe you said it was posted on Twitter, of the shooter, a Molotov cocktail or something?
I believe it was a YouTube video.
Okay. You have no information that James was aware of that video?
No.
Now, Exhibit 16 is a photograph of the backpack and contents in the bathroom that we looked at.
Okay.
The photo shows that the journal that was in the backpack was open, and I believe you testified that that was opened by law enforcement.
To be honest, I'm not. So, if I can recap that, the Michigan State Police bomb squad went in there. They arranged the items, to my understanding, and that's how. The first time I saw that, that's how it was.
Okay, so you don't have any specific knowledge about how that was opened or who opened it. You just know that when you saw the the contents, that's how they were as they were in the photograph.
Right.
You identified the journal as that of the shooter because his name was in it.
Yes. Among other things.
Right. You said also the writing matched homework that you saw and things of that nature. The first date that you have written in the journal you testified was November 9th of 2021.
I believe that's right.
Okay. You indicated that there were references to incidents prior to November 9th of 2021, but you don't specifically know what the dates were that those incidents were written about. Is that fair?
I think I might,
Based on reading the journal?
based on everything I've read.
Okay. So based on everything you have about, all the knowledge you have about the case that you learned after November 30th of 2021, you may have additional information.
Yes.
But looking at the journal, you can't tell from the dates. There aren't dates other than November 9th of 2021, and I think there might be a couple other ones referencing the shooting.
You're correct.
Okay. You testified that the journal appears to be written from back to front. So opening the front cover, there would be no writing, but if you flip to the back, then it's the 22 pages from the back forward that have writing on them.
It seems that way, yes.
And again, I think this is an obvious question, but I'm going to ask you. You have no indication that James Crumbley was aware that that journal existed, correct?
No, I think I know. He knew it existed.
That that journal existed?
Yeah, he mentioned it in his counseling session that why don't you write, you can write in your journal.
Right, and we heard from the counselor and we heard from the dean of students, who both testified that there was a mention of a journal, but that there were no specifics given. It doesn't say the journal in your backpack, the one you always keep with you. He didn't provide colors. He didn't provide any descriptive detail. We saw in the search warrant photos that were taken that there were additional notebooks and, could be journals in the shooter's bedroom. He references a journal. The school counselor and the dean of students mentioned a journal, testified about a journal. They indicated that James Crumbley said, you have a journal. But there's no specifics given about what that journal is. Is that fair?
That was a long question.
It was a very long question. Yes. There were no specifics given during that meeting at the school about whether James had any knowledge of what the journal looked like, if he knew what was in it, or anything like that.
No.
Specifically pages 15 and 22 that we have that were admitted as Exhibit 359. On page 15, if you recall, the shooter is writing about wanting a 9mm and that he's mad because he wants to get it because that's what he wants for the school shooting, correct?
Can we put it
Yes. In fact, I can hand this to you because I don't have it electronically. May I approach, Your Honor?
Sure.
Thank you. It's flipped open to page 15.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm sorry, what was your question, Counselor?
Page 15.
Okay.
There's some mention about the shooter wanting a 9mm gun. He wants it for the school shooting. And he's mad that he hasn't gotten it yet.
I'm not. Yes.
Okay.
He's pissed.
Pissed is the word he used, correct? Page 15 also includes this statement. He mentions the Caltech and says he has to find where his dad hid it.
Yes, that's what it says.
If you'd like to. Yes. I'm going to go to page 22 next, Mr. Keese. Mr. Keese is going to put them on the screen for you.
Thank you.
You have to turn this one on.
May I approach, Hannah? Thank you, Mr. Keese. So So that's the page 15 that you just looked at, correct? The portion that I asked you to look at. and review.
Yes.
Page 22. If you could go to page 22, Mr. Keys, thank you.
There's a few 22.
Page 22, the binding.
Which exhibit number is this?
359, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Page 22, and again, we discussed that this was written along the binding, so along the inside edge of the page, correct, in the journal?
Yes.
And it says, I will have to find where my dad hid my 9mm before I can shoot the school, correct?
That is what it says.
Now, we know based on the testimony that you've heard, and you've been sitting in court during the trial, we know that there was a 9mm handgun purchased on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
That the
correct.
shooting at the high school occurred on November 30th of 2021. That the shooter and his mom went to the shooting range on November 27th of 2021. So this portion would have been written at some point between November 27th of 2021 and arguably the morning of November 30th of 2021.
Well, now you've confused me. I don't.
Well, we know that there was no 9mm handgun in the house until November 26th of 2021, correct? Based on your investigation.
I see the 9mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this specifically references a 9mm.
It does.
This is different than the other on page 15, which specifically references the Kel-Tec.
I got you.
So, although Mr. Crumbley's son says my 9mm, we know that there was a 9mm purchase on November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
That he went to the shooting range on November 27th of
Yes.
2021, and the shooting occurred on November 30th of 2021.
Yes.
So we know, and this page was page 22, which would have been the back cover of the journal. Is that fair? If you recall?
I don't.
If you don't, it's okay. But we can read this and know that it would have been written after definitely November 26th of 2021.
Yes.
On page 3 of the journal, Mr. Keese, if you want to read page 3, thank you. It's access. Yes. If you look at the third line of this entry, it says, I have access to the gun and the ammo. Do you see that?
I do see it.
Now, you don't recall seeing anything in this journal or even around this entry that says, my dad told me where the gun and ammo are. Correct?
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. You don't recall reading anything in the journal that says, my dad told me where the gun and ammo are.
I do not.
You don't remember reading anything in the journal, you didn't see anything in the journal that says, my dad showed me where the gun and ammo are.
No, I didn't read that.
So when it says, I have access, you don't know how he obtained access. Is that fair? It just says, I have access. Exactly what the words are.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes. Reading this journal entry and the information that you have that you've read in the journal, this doesn't say how Mr. Crumbley's son had access to the firearm. Is that fair?
That's right. Just simply that he had access.
Simply that he had access.
Understood.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Briefly, thank you, Judge. Starting off with the journal here. You were asked if James Crumbley knew it existed, and you indicated that you believe that the answer was that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you were here for Mr. Hopkins' testimony as well as Mr. Ejak's testimony, of course, you're the officer in charge of the investigation. In that meeting with James Crumbley, did he say journals, plural, or journal as in singular?
Just a singular journal.
Okay. And there were notebooks found in the home, 112 East in Oxford. You saw a picture of that. But were there any other journals found?
There were not.
Okay. And you indicated that you believe that you can tell approximately when the journal entries were written based upon the content?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we didn't really go over it in direct examination, but there was an incident on November the 4th, 2021 at Oxford High School. Was that referenced in the journal?
It was.
And an incident that occurred November the 11th, 2021. Was that referenced?
Yes.
Did the shooter reference his friend who left the state October 31st?
He did.
Okay. Was there any indication anywhere in the journal that the 9mm was locked up?
No.
Now, we saw evidence in this case that the shooter obtained access to the Kel-Tec pistol as well.
Yes.
Okay, and that text message was, "Look what my dad left out."
Correct.
Okay. And what we have on the screen here, page 3, first off, I got my gun. It's an SP-2022 6-hour 9mm. Second, the shooting is tomorrow. We know, of course, the shooting occurred November the 30th, 2021. Can you presume a date on this passage? So this would be November the 21st, presumably?
Presumably.
Okay. Second, shooting's tomorrow. I have access to the gun and ammo. And of course, we know that he did obtain that weapon.
We do.
Okay. And we know that the murder weapon from November the 30th was the weapon purchased by James Crumbley on November the 26th, 2021.
Absolutely.
I have nothing further.
Brief request, or brief question?
Right.
Very brief. And I don't mean to belabor the issue, but when it comes to journals or notebooks, you don't know what James calls a notebook, what he calls a journal. You have no idea. Is that fair?
That's not fair.
Okay.
I do know what he calls a journal because he called it a journal in the meeting with Mr. Hopkins.
Right. He said something about a journal.
He did.
You don't know if he's talking about a notebook. You don't know if he's talking about a journal, like a diary with a lock on it. You have no idea what he's talking about.
I got a pretty good idea he's talking about a journal. That's what I can say.
Right. A journal.
A journal.
The reference to the Kel-Tec that Mr. Keys just asked you about was in August of 2021, correct? He asked about the video that we saw, the text that Mr. Crumbley's son sent to his friend about my dad left it out, LOL, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
That was in August of 21.
Can you show me?
If you recall.
I don't recall.
You don't recall seeing anything from November of 21 in the journal or otherwise saying that Mr. Crumbley's son had access because Mr. Crumbley left a gun out in November of 21 or in the journal, correct?
Ask that again, please.
Sure. You don't recall seeing anything during your investigation from November of 21 that Mr. Crumbley had allegedly left a firearm out in the house and his son talked about it.
This is beyond the scope of my redirect.
I still don't understand the question.
Sure, Your Honor. Mr. Keys asked about the text that was sent from Mr. Crumbley's son to his friend about his dad allegedly leaving the Kel-Tec out.
Okay.
And he filmed a video of himself.
Okay.
I'm trying to clarify that that video was in August of 21. I mean, if I need to, I'll pull up the exhibit, but I was just trying to clarify with the detective lieutenant.
Okay, I think if you showed me the exhibit, he'd be able to decide, but do you stipulate that that was from August of 21?
Are we talking about the Kel-Tec?
Yes.
Sorry, yes. August 18th, 21, and August 20. I'm sorry.
August 9th.
I did it again. August 19th of 21 and August 20th of 21.
Okay, I can tell you what exhibit it
Your Honor, they stipulated to the date, so I don't need to ask again.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
is. All right.
I just, based on that, there was evidence that we introduced in this case that the shooter filmed a video of himself holding the 6-hour 9mm handgun November 26, 2021.
Yes.
Okay. And there were also Instagram posts of him holding that same firearm on the 27th of 21.
That is correct.
Okay. And I think I misspoke earlier. I said November 21st as far as this passage being written. This would actually be November the 29th of 2021.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Judge.
All right, can he be excused?
Yes, Judge.
All right, you can step down and you're excused.
Thank you, Judge.
Tell me where we're headed.
Judge, we have no further witnesses today. Before we officially rest, I'd like the opportunity to review our exhibit list. We had a lot of modifications throughout the case.
All right.
I want to confirm with defense counsel what was extracted and added on. And then tomorrow morning, we'll know for sure.
All right, do you want 9 o'clock?
That's fine, Your Honor. Yes.
9 o'clock. All right. I'm going to ask you to return at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Please know again that during the trial you should not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence you consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. So to be fair to both sides, you must follow this instructions. Do not go on social media, do not post, do not do research, do not discuss the case with anyone. We really appreciate your commitment to this very important job. And we ask you to hang with us just a few more days. We're nearing closings within the week, I would think. Remember to fill out your lunch form for tomorrow. Stay healthy tonight, and don't discuss the case with anyone. Any questions about the schedule? Any questions about that? No. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All rise for the jury.
Please be seated and remain seated until the defendant is removed from the courtroom. 9 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Thank you,
Yes,
Judge.
Your Honor, thank you.
All right, as you see there, James Crumbley taking off his tie as he goes back into police custody. The trial is in day 4. It's just ending for the day, and we will be back tomorrow for day 5 as it continues. So we'll have it right here on News 10 Plus, on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and everywhere else you are streaming. We'll have it first thing tomorrow morning. Tune in to News 10 at 5 for the latest.